The Detroit Pistons are 26 games into the NBA season. What are my three biggest takeaways so far? 26 games into the season. We'll talk about that on today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. This episode is brought to you by TrueBill. TrueBill is a new app that helps you save money by helping you identify and stop paying for the subscriptions you don't want or need. It can even negotiate better deals on those that you want to keep. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And make sure you go subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not already. Locked On Pistons over at YouTube. For those of you guys who are watching on YouTube and are not already subscribed, and trust me, I know there's a lot of you. I have those stats. I know there's a lot of you guys watching on YouTube that are not subscribed. Hit that subscribe button, man. We're trying to get to 1,000 by the end of the year. We are hovering close to 900 subscribers. I believe right now when I'm recording, we're seven subscribers away from 900. So by the end of the year, we're trying to get to 1,000. It looks like we might be able to get there. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you haven't subscribed already, please hit that subscribe button. If you listen to this in the podcast version, please head over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. We're trying to get to 1,000 by the end of the year. Be the best Christmas present you guys could give me. I appreciate it a lot. But yeah, like I said in the cold open, we're going to be talking about my three biggest takeaways from the Pistons season thus far through 26 games. What are my three biggest takeaways? Now, obviously, there's so many different things you could probably take away from the Pistons season thus far. There's so many different angles, but I'm just going to go with the three most intriguing ones, I think, right now for the Pistons. But before we get into that, let me tell you guys, if you guys have been living under a rock or something, the Pistons game today against the Chicago Bulls has been canceled due to the Bulls having absolutely nobody on their roster without COVID. They are having a massive COVID outbreak. I believe last I checked, they have 10 players who are in COVID protocol. One of my, if you guys followed me for a few years, you guys will know that Stanley Johnson was like one of my favorite players growing up. Me and him, I believe, are the same age, but when he got drafted, whatever, he was one of my favorite players. I always thought that he was going to be great, whatever. But the reason why I bring him up is because the Bulls signed him out the G League. I believe he was playing for the Lakers G League team. They signed him out of G League to be one of their COVID replacements, and their COVID replacement got COVID. Stanley had COVID, so they needed someone to replace them. Then the replacement got COVID, and it's just a real bad situation over there in Chicago. So the NBA has canceled the game, or postponed, I should say, the game against the Bulls today for the Pistons. So the Pistons are going to get a few more days off until their next game, which I believe is on Thursday or Friday. I should have that in front of me, but I believe it's in a few days. Dwayne Casey mentioned today in his press meeting that he's going to take advantage of this time. Yeah, it's Thursday against the Indiana Pacers at 7 p.m. But yeah, they're going to have a few extra more days to talk about and practice and get ready for the Pacers now that the game against the Bulls has been postponed. But anyways, now let's get into my three biggest takeaways. So we're going to go by segment. My first biggest takeaway so far for the Detroit Pistons season, I'm going to find a positive one. Because I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of a hint. The final two ones probably aren't so positive. But we'll start with the positive one because I know everyone wants to be happy and feel good. The first one, I think, is that we have figured out that the Killian Hayes and Cade Cunningham backcourt will work, or not actually, let me not say will work, can work. They fit together. It's going to be a matter of one of these players figuring it out. So obviously, I think everyone's major takeaway, I think, is it's like low-hanging fruit. I wasn't going to use it, but obviously Cade Cunningham's great. He's everything as advertised. He's been absolutely exceptional the last 5 games, I believe. He's averaging like 22, 6, and 5 on 50% shooting from beyond the arc. He's playing out. He's playing great. He's playing like the rookie of the year. So yes, Cade's great, but that's low hanging fruit. I'm not going to say that because it's not interesting. Everyone knows that. So I want a different angle. I think Killian Hayes and Cade Cunningham have proven that they do fit together. They can work and they should work. However, this is going to be dependent on Killian Hayes' development and whether he becomes the player the Pistons believe he can be and what he's teasing so far to start this season. Their archetypes, they fit together. They're both really good defense, have potential to be really good defensively. I'd say Killian Hayes is pretty good defensively. Cade is still a rookie and struggles on the end from time to time. He has lapses, fouls a little too much sometimes, finds himself helping a little bit too much, all those rookie things. But he figures to be a good defender in the future. You already see the instincts, the steals, the passing lane, some of that stuff. Once he gets some experience under his belt, he'll be another good defender. But anyways, they're both project to be really good defenders. Killian already is one. They're both tall, long, and are very physical defensively. And that really puts offenses that they go against at a disadvantage. They have two big guys at 6'5" and 6'6", 6'7", guarding them and able to double down and get up in the passing lanes. The Pistons can switch across the board now that they got these two guys. So defensively, they fit together seamlessly. Everyone loves their fit defensively. Offensively, it's going to come down to whether Killian Hayes continues to improve. So far this season, Killian Hayes, it does look better than he did last season. Now, the last few games, his percentages have started to tank a little bit. He is struggling a little bit as of late. His thumb injury is coming back up again. He got hit with it in this last game against the Brooklyn Nets. Dwayne Casey did say as of the 13th, so it will be yesterday when you guys listen to this, that Killian Hayes did not participate in practice. They don't know what the next step of his plan is. It doesn't sound like, for me, it doesn't sound like it's too serious. It sounds like he'll be able to play, but I'm not gonna give you guys any final say on that or speculate too much. They could decide to hold him out a few more games again. But Dwayne Casey did say that Killian did not practice. So we'll have to see what happens with this thumb injury. And it really is nagging him right now throughout the season. It seems like every few games someone hits him in the thumb and it's messing him up. But anyways, back to the backcourt and together. Offensively, it's really going to come down to Killian Hayes. So Killian Hayes, throughout the majority of the first, 16, 17 games of his season, he was shooting really good from beyond the arc. Right now, he's hovering around 35%. He's shooting 34.4% from beyond the arc. So as of right now, his percentages aren't as high as they were over the last. Well, let's go and look, because he's struggling in the last few games to hit some shots. Since he came back from that thumb injury, he is struggling to shoot from beyond the arc. So over the last 7 games, he's shooting 28% from deep. That's not ideal. The last few games actually have been really awful for him, I feel. He's still shooting 28% in those games as well, the last 4 games of the season. But yeah, the thumb injury is hurting him. But the archetype that you see him billing to be as a catch-and-shoot guy, low turnover guy, 2 guys who are playmakers, able to play off of each other. You see them connecting a lot on backdoor cuts with him and Killian. They're both playmakers. You want multiple ball handlers. And so there's so many things that they do together. They already have really good chemistry. Cade has said on multiple occasions he loves playing with Killian. So I think the major positive so far, outside of just strictly Cade Cunningham being good, is the fact that the backcourt has proven or has given you an idea that it can work and it's going to be dependent on if Killian Hayes can actually be good. Because the archetypes that they fit seamlessly together. You see the highs throughout the season so far where they just seamlessly fit together and look great together. You've seen that already. However, it depends on whether Killian Hayes continues to get better, because I feel like he has looked better and better as the seasons went on. He's definitely better than he was last year, but he still has a long ways to go. He's not a good NBA player yet. He's better this year, like I said, but he still has a long ways to go, and he's showing progress as the season goes on. And I think the backcourt was the biggest question so far going into the season. People thought it may not work. People were saying that Killian Hayes may need to come off the bench. And I think it's proven. And in the games that Killian Hayes missed, that they really missed him, and Cade really missed him in the half-court offense. So Killian and Cade, they fit good together. They're great fits on defense and offensively. Their archetypes fit good when they're hitting in all cylinders. They look really good together. It's just dependent on if Killian Hayes is going to continue to develop. And if he does, they're going to be a great backcourt for the Pistons moving forward for the next however many years. It's going to be extremely fun to watch them. There shouldn't be any doubts for the backcourt fitting. It's going to be, like I said, I'm going to say it again. I've said it probably about 10 times. It's going to depend if Killian Hayes continues to get better. If he does, that backcourt set and the Pistons should be good moving forward, unless obviously they get one of the top. I'm not really a draft guy, so I don't know if any of the top guys in the next draft are point guards or anything. But obviously, if you get one of those guys, generational type of guys, whatever, obviously Killian Hayes gets bumped to the bench. But I don't feel like that's. I feel like there's other areas that are of need, and the Pistons should feel pretty good about their backcourt moving forward, unless obviously, like I just said, they could get one of their top generational guys in a draft or something. Obviously, you take it at that point. But I think the backcourt has been a positive for the Pistons. I think everyone should be happy about that. It was a question mark coming into this season, but I think it's shown to be pretty good. And everyone should be happy about that, because those are your top 2 draft picks over the last few years. Killian Hayes looks like he's getting better. And if he continues to do that, that backcourt is going to be really good for years to come. But when we come back, we'll talk about 2 of my other takeaways from the Pistons season so far, 26 games into the season. These ones are not so positive, but they have to be talked about. We've talked about both of these a little bit on the podcast, obviously, so far this season, but these are my 2 biggest takeaways after the backcourt. But first, before we get into that, I have to tell you guys about some of our sponsors. First up, let me tell you about TrueBill. Do you know why free trials renew without your consent? It's a business scam out to get you. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download TrueBill to take control of your subscriptions. TrueBill is a new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with TrueBill. Because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, TrueBill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and TrueBill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in just one tap. And your TrueBill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. TrueBill has over 2 million users and have helped them save over $100 million. So don't fall for the subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/lockedonnba. Go right now, truebill.com/lockedonnba. It can save you thousands a year. That's truebill.com/lockedonnba. Then let me tell you about another one of our sponsors, Stance. I've been hearing a lot about Stance apparel lately, especially the new active apparel line that they just launched. It's holiday gifting time, and Stance is the coolest gift you can give. It's incredibly comfortable and well made. Their socks, shirts, joggers, hoodies, all of them, incredibly comfortable. Stance changed the mindset by offering color, comfort, and creativity to all their clothing lines like no other. Founded in 2009, Stance Apparel represents a radical reinvention of socks, underwear, and active apparel. With a sharp focus on comfort, quality, and creativity, Stance brings an atypical aesthetic alongside some of pop culture's hottest collaborations for the ultimate in style and self-expressions. Because everything you wear should be a direct extension of who you are and how you feel. They have some crazy current collaborations like Wu-Tang Clan, Batman, The Goonies, Star Wars, my favorite show, probably my favorite comedy show ever, The Office, Harry Potter, Disney, Marvel, Bob Marley, Major League Baseball, the NBA, and Pixar. Their clothing pieces are so incredibly soft and comfortable. I absolutely love them. My favorite are the socks. They're so incredibly comfortable. I love it. Wear them anytime it's too cold, and you know how cold it gets in Michigan. So Stance believes that the perfect fit matters more than fitting in, that those who feel good do good. Go see for yourself. Register for an account at stance.com and get 15% off your first purchase. Use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout to apply. Enjoy the color and comfort of a life less ordinary with Stance. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And again, I want to make sure I let you guys know we are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers over on the YouTube channel by the end of the year. For those of you guys who are watching on YouTube and haven't hit the subscribe button yet, go hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. We're about 8 subscribers away from 900, just a little over 100 away from 1,000. And those of you guys listening on the podcast version, head over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the podcast. I'd really appreciate it. So again, we're just a little bit away from 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Please, I want to get there. If you haven't already, please go hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. But we just got done talking about one of my biggest takeaways from the Pistons season so far. It's a positive, but the next two that we're going to talk about are not going to be so positive. And you know, I know people are tired of hearing negativity about the Pistons season, but I'm going to look in the camera for those of you guys on YouTube, and for those of you guys on the podcast, you guys can hear it in my voice real quick. What positives is there really to talk about the Pistons outside Cade Cunningham? Just let me know, because I've watched every single game. I've watched every single quarter. I've watched every single minute. I go through film nonstop. I go through all the stats. Listen, I need to know what other positives that have come out so far through the 26 games that need to be talked about. I've seen Cade Cunningham, the backcourt. Recently, Killian Hayes has struggled a little bit over the last 2 or 3 games, but before that, he was another positive. He looked like he had taken a step forward this season, or looked like he was developing. We'll see if that continues to happen throughout the season. But outside of that, what was a positive so far this season? So it's struggling. It's hard not to talk about negatives with a 4-22 team. So cut me some slack, man. I got to talk about what's happening, and it's not my fault that they put bad product on the floor. I have to talk about what's on the floor. It happens to be bad product. Can't help it. But let's go ahead and talk about the next takeaway. My next takeaway is sadly going to be about one of you guys' well, actually, no, I've started to see, I won't say the tide changed, but I don't think he's as just untouchable and loved as he was last year. But that's Isaiah Stewart. Isaiah Stewart, last season, coming into this season, was considered one of the, what did the not Isaiah Stewart, what did Troy call them? The core four. He was one of those guys, the guys drafted in his first draft. So Killian Hayes, Isaiah Stewart, Saddiq Bey, and Saban Lee. And Isaiah Stewart had a good rookie season. He made all rookie second team. I believe one of Bleacher Report's redraft had him drafted at 4th or 3rd in a redraft because of his ability to impact on defense and the promise he was showing offensively when it comes to shooting wise. And they had him up there towards the top of the draft in a redraft. So obviously his rookie season was pretty good. So far this season, it has not been that good for Isaiah Stewart. He has struggled to make an impact offensively. I'm not going to go through all the numbers with him on the floor with specific lineups, But just to give you guys an idea, I put out a tweet earlier talking about what the Pistons numbers look like with Killian and Cade on the floor without Isaiah Stewart, and Killian and Cade on the floor with Isaiah Stewart, and the difference is stunning. So with Cade and Killian on and Stewart on, they have a minus 13.3 net rating. With Cade and Killian on and Isaiah Stewart off, they have a plus 5.2 net rating. And their offense gets better by over 13 points. So this is the thing. Isaiah Stewart, and I'm not trying to just make it a Cade and Killian thing. That's not what I'm trying to do here. What I'm trying to point out is, let me talk about some positives real quick about Isaiah Stewart before I go there. Isaiah Stewart does look like he's fine defensively. I wouldn't say he's great defensively. I don't know if I would actually even call him good defensively. I think he's fine and he's making progress on that side. I feel like calling him good defensively is going a little bit too far, because I don't know if you would, like, if you put him up on like a contending team or like teams with like legit good defenders, I don't know if you would say he's on that level. But where he's at in his second year as an NBA player, I think you would then say, compared to second-year NBA players, I guess you could say he's a good defender. That's where he's at. I'm happy with his progression defensively. Is basically what I'm trying to say. Defensively, I'm happy with this progression. Offensively is where his issues come from, and it's majority, I would say, coming from the fact that he has completely stopped shooting outside shots. If you guys listened to the podcast last year, you guys know that I was already questioning whether his outside shooting ability was ever like legit. You guys know that I talked about many times how after February, when he started tuning up his attempts to about 3 a game, his shooting percentages crashed to the earth. I believe he was shooting around 26% after that, once his attempts went. So I was hesitant to believe whether he was actually going to be a shooter anyways, but the fact that he was shooting them and trying to make the defense respect him opened things up for the floor for the Pistons. And there was some back and forth for the beginning of the season. I was saying that was a problem for the offense. Others were trying to say, no, it's not that big of a deal. The offense is just bad. It's only a few games, blah, blah. We'll see it happen. He'll get accustomed, blah, blah. So far, nothing has changed. The offense still sucks in the half court, and a major thing that has to do with it is the fact Isaiah Stewart right now is just struggling to find a way to impact the game offensively. Currently on the floor, when Isaiah Stewart's on the floor right now as in the starting lineup, it's basically 5-4 offensively outside when he gets on putbacks. And the reason for this is Isaiah Stewart's not a great athlete. He's undersized at his position. He has long arms, but he's not a great athlete. That was one of his question marks coming into the draft, his explosion. But he made up for this last season in his rookie season by being physical and showing some threats from 15 feet in the mid-range area and from outside, from the three-point range. And that part is what made him intriguing, so interesting, because if he was able to add that part, a guy who's able to become a really good defender and a guy who's able to stretch the floor at your 5 position, and how well he was playing, he showed so much promise in pick and roll defense and switching too. There was one play last season in his rookie year where he switched on to Chris Paul, and it was just fantastic. He shut him down. And you even had national guys over on Twitter, national writers, talking about that play because of how impressive it was. So all those things made him such an intriguing prospect. And then this season, he's completely just like basically stopped shooting outside of 5 feet from the rim. And it's really hurt him. Now, he's not shooting well from outside that range right now. And his jump shot looks like it's changed a little bit. We don't know if this is like part of the plan. He's not ready to shoot them now that they've changed his jumper a little bit. I don't know. But that part is really hindering him offensively. And the team just straight up is not good with him on the floor offensively. And that sucked. Because Isaiah Stewart was one of those fan favorites. You wanted to see him play well. You wanted to see him do well. You wanted to see him develop. But he just hasn't done that so far this season. You can't say he's taken a step forward. I would say he's actually taking a step backwards right now. It's been tough to watch Isaiah Stewart sometimes on offense. And I said this on a podcast, I believe 2 episodes ago. I think one of the issues with Isaiah Stewart right now, and people take this as a negative. I really don't look at it as a negative. I hate how people try to. One of my biggest pet peeves and one of the things I hate, and we'll talk about this again with who we're going to talk about in the third segment, but one of the things I hate most that fans do is that they set so high expectations for certain guys and think so highly of certain guys that they set them to a standard that's just unrealistic. And then if you suggest that they, A, can't hit that standard, or 2, when they don't hit that, or I guess I should say B, but B, when they don't hit that standard, you consider them a disappointment. I don't like that. I say all that to say this. I think the issue with Isaiah Stewart that he's having right now is the fact that last year he was going against bench big guys. And we talked about this on the podcast a few podcasts ago or a few episodes ago that, Isaiah Stewart's his archetype and his skill set is based off the fact he's a hustler and very physical. And those are two things you can really get away with and have high energy minutes off the bench. You can take advantage of other guys because a lot of guys don't want to do that dirty work. That stuff really is used and I feel like is more valuable off the bench. When you start going against other starting big men, pure hustle and physicality is not going to get you through. Excuse me, I have the hiccups. I don't know what's going on. Pure physicality and hustle is not going to get you by other starting big men. And if he's not going to be able, and he's not going to be able to improve his vertical by like 10 inches. It's not going to happen. He is who he is athletically. He's not going to be able to change that. So the thing that made him intriguing was his outside shooting. So yes, he hustles very hard. He plays very physical, but as a starting center, he has to find something else to bring in. If he's not going to be able to finish consistently around the rim and bring that threat as a lob threat, which he just isn't going to be able to do, he's just not that archetype. He doesn't have the body and skill set for that. Then he has to bring it somewhere from beyond the arc or mid-range shots or simply being a threat somewhere outside of 5 feet where he's not even that big of a threat. And right now he's really struggling to do that. And I feel like he's kind of being asked to do too much because of that, because his skill set and what he's great at is best used off the bench. And I don't see anything wrong with that. If he ends up being a high-quality backup big guy, that's a big win at the 1916th pick. I forget which one was 19th. Was it Isaiah Stewart or Saddiq Bey? I forget which one. I think Isaiah was the 16th. But either way, that's a really good value at the 16th pick. And if he's a high-quality big guy, you can start some games. Okay, I'm not riding the end of Isaiah Stewart. He may turn out to be a starting quality guy. We'll see that happen. See if he continues to develop. He did miss the offseason a lot because of that ankle injury, so we'll see how it goes. But right now, it looks like he's a little overmatched as a big guy, as a starting big guy. He's not bringing it offensively because he just doesn't have the skill set to do so right now. He's not even attempting shots out of 5 feet, and it's hurting the Pistons' offense. And I think when Kelly Olynyk comes back, the Pistons, and you guys know before the season, I said I thought Kelly Olynyk should start. But I think when Kelly Olynyk comes back, they should seriously contemplate either starting Kelly Olynyk and bring Isaiah Stewart off the bench, or possibly trading for another starting big guy who can bring that presence as a lob threat and pick and roll guy. Because I feel like I'll leave it here, and then we'll move on to the next topic. I feel like we're starting to get a little bit too negative by Stewart. I don't want to come off as like I don't like Stewart or trying to be too negative. I'm just trying to be honest. The reason why, and I had someone arguing with me. One of the listeners was arguing with me about this. He said, Killian Hayes brings it defensively, and he gets praised by you. Isaiah Stewart brings it defensively, and you're talking about the Pistons might need to get a different replacement or might need to bring him off the bench. What's the difference here? The difference is Killian Hayes is not hindering people offensively. Killian is finding ways to contribute offensively. Now, is he great at those things yet? No, I'm not saying he's already good at those things, but he's not actively hurting the team offensively and making it to where certain players can't operate, basically, is what I'm saying. Isaiah Stewart and the numbers back it up. You can't avoid it right now. It's 26 games. He is actively hurting the Pistons guards because he's now a threat in the pick and roll. They can't run pick and rolls because of this. He's hard. When they drop the ball off for him on drop-offs, it's kind of hard for him to finish because he's not that athletic, and he can't really explode off that. And part of the reason why people thought he'd be interesting to start is because he could bring him from beyond the arc, and now he's not even shooting it. So that's the difference there, and that's why I think the Pistons, when Kelly Olynyk comes back, or at least in trades for the next few weeks, to entertain possibly going after a big guy to fill in his shoes. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you guys have said over and over to me that, development doesn't just mean starting the guy. He can be developed off the bench. Well, you could develop Stu off the bench eventually, and if he ends up turning into a starter again, then you start him again. But as of right now, I just feel like he's overmatched right now, and it's hurting other players' development by doing so. We spent a long time talking about Isaiah Stewart just now. I didn't mean to do that. I like Stu. I think he has a baseline of a backup big guy in the NBA. I just feel like as of right now, he's just kind of overmatched, and he's not ready to be a starter right now, and it's hurting other players' development. If it was just hurting himself and he's going through growing pains, then I'd rock with it. But the fact that he's hurting other players' development, in my opinion, makes it to where they might need to contemplate lineup switches once Kelly Olynyk gets healthy. When we come back, I spent a long time. My God, I did not mean to spend that long talking about that. But when we come back, we'll talk about my third biggest takeaway so far through 26 games of the Pistons season. Make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But before we get into that, I got to tell you guys about another one of our sponsors. This one is Boost Mobile. You listen to podcasts for the power of knowledge. You switch to Boost Mobile for the power of saving money. Because of Boost, you get the power of a free 5G phone so you can listen to all the latest episodes. The power of 3 unlimited data lines for $30 a month per line, so your family can harness all that brain power too. And the power of one of America's largest 5G networks, so you can do it all at the speed of 5G. With all that money you'll save and all that knowledge you'll gain, just how powerful will you become? Switch to Boost Mobile and find out. Get a free Samsung Galaxy A32 5G when you switch to one of America's largest 5G networks. More power to save with Boost Mobile. Disclaimer: free phone limited to new customers and one per line. Additional restrictions apply. Offers coverages not available everywhere or for all phones and networks. See boostmobile.com for details. More power to save with Boost Mobile. I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are feeling available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. You guys know the deal. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. But let's go ahead and get right into it. My third biggest takeaway. I want to say again, I don't want to try to come off as too negative about Isaiah Stewart in that last segment. I know we spent a long time talking about how he's hurting the offense, but that's just what it is. And I believe he has a great work ethic. So if he ends up pushing through it and he ends up developing it, he's only in his second season. It's not writing the end. It's just simply talking about what we've seen so far on the floor. And that's just undeniable. I'm not going to refute that and let my fandom or biases get in the way of that. That's just the truth. And I hope he develops and gets better. And maybe he does become a starting center. But as of right now, I just feel like he's overmatched. Anyways, the next biggest takeaway so far in the season, you guys know where I'm going with this. I'm sure you guys were waiting for this. It's Saddiq Bey. Since we spent so long talking about Isaiah Stewart and being negative with him, I don't want to spend too much time talking about Saddiq Bey being negative because I think you guys probably will have enough negativity for the podcast. But it's no doubt right now that Saddiq Bey has just been flat out objectively bad this season for the Pistons. He was all rookie first team last season. He had a great rookie season, broke a lot of records as a three-point shooter. He showed a lot of promise, looked like a really good pick by Troy Weaver in the draft. And, you know, he figured to be a really good 3-and-D player down the line. However, you guys know at the beginning of the offseason, it sounded like they were going to try to start. He wanted to at least, or the Pistons wanted him to at least, try to develop a little bit something else outside of his game. Some off-the-dribble stuff, finishing around the rim, all that kind of stuff. And then the Summer League, he showcased that. And he wasn't doing very good at it. And I came on the podcast and I said that I would rather him just work on off-pin down shooting, off movement shooting, off screen shooting, shooting off the dribble from beyond the arc, all those kind of things. One to two dribbles off the dribble threes from beyond the arc. But that's not what they worked on with him. And he tried to do a lot more this season. And it flat out just hasn't worked. There's no way of hiding it. There's no way of lying about it. It's flat out not worked. Saddiq has seriously struggled for a large majority of the season. Literally outside the first 4 games of the Pistons season this year, he's flat out been just bad. I like, it's hard not to just come out and say how it is. I mean, I feel like if you're not coming out and just straight up saying he's been bad, you're not being objective and you're just lying. Like, let me read you his stat line right now, his shooting splits. He's shooting 34% from the floor in general. He's shooting 29% from deep. He's shooting 39% from 2-point range. And he's shooting 73% from the free throw line. That's bad. That's awful. I don't even want to look at his true shooting percentages right now. It's at 44%. True shooting percentage of 44%. That's Stanley Johnson numbers. It's not good. And it sucks to see because he was supposed to be one of the big bright spots of the draft class. It looked like, because Killian Hayes was hurt for such a long time. A lot of fans turned their back on Killian Hayes. A lot of them still have their back turned to Killian Hayes. It looked like Saddiq was going to be the gem of the draft. And he still could be the gem of that draft class. But as of right now, he's seriously taken not just one, I'd say like 2 or 3 steps back this season. He's hesitating to shoot threes. The team's struggling with him on the floor. If you go look at all the lineups on NBA.com, he leads the Pistons in minutes, and the majority of the Pistons' worst lineups are with him on the floor. So the fact that your leading minute getter is also on some of your worst lineups as well, that's a bad recipe to have. He's taken a step back defensively too. It's been a struggle for Saddiq this season. I think he can get back to it. Obviously, this is the thing that kind of is. It's really worrying for Saddiq for me because, Bryce Simon. We talked about this on the podcast a few weeks ago. He had like a chart. He took out a chart and it was all the top 3-point shooters from the rookie season, top 3-point makes makers and compared it to what their second season was. And there's only 2 players on that list who have taken as big of a drop off as Saddiq has from 3-point range in their second season. One of them is Saddiq, and the other one is Kyle Kuzma. I don't think Pistons fans want Kyle Kuzma out of Saddiq Bey. Now, that's not saying he's going to be Kyle Kuzma, but my point is that this is more than just like a shooter struggling. This is a massive step back for a shooter. Like, we're not talking about Saddiq Bey dropping from 38 to 35%. Saddiq Bey has went from being a legitimate, really good shooter to a poor shooter. Like, straight up poor. Not really good to just, average, or really good to a little good. Like, he went from really good to straight up poor. And I don't know if I'm sure it's happened in the NBA before, but I haven't seen something like that before, me watching basketball. A guy go from being a really good shooter to flat out just being a poor one. And it's stunning. Part of me wants to say, he has way too much of a sample size as a good shooter for this to continue to be like this. But we said that through 10 games. We said that through 15 games. We said that through 20 games. We said that through 25 games. We're at game 26 and he's still shooting 29%. It's worrying. I think there's no doubt about it. We're at a point now where you should at least be worried about Saddiq Bey. Not only is he not shooting well, like I said, he's running away from open shots. He's been yanked from the court a few times recently because he's ran away from open shots. There's been a few times. There was also, I believe 2 games ago, he got yanked because he pulled up for a transition 3 and airballed it. There was another. You guys have known all the times I've talked about on the podcast of the times where he has an open 3 and he sidesteps and contested one, and Dwayne Casey ended up coming out one of the weeks that he did it like a couple times and said, "You're never more open than you are when you first catch the ball." There's just so many things going wrong with Saddiq that, one of our good friends of the podcast, Hal Brittius, he says all the time, it's not about the end result, it's about the process. If you're going through good process and developing and getting better at your process, your result will eventually get better. Well, the problem is that Saddiq not only is having bad results, but right now he's also having bad progress. So it's just really bad right now for Saddiq. And that has to be a big takeaway from the Pistons season, because a lot of people were expecting a big jump forward for Saddiq, or at least a little bit of a step forward, at the very least to stay the same. I don't think anyone was expecting him to take 2 to 3 steps backwards in just about every department. It's shocking to see. It's tough to watch sometimes, because I feel like even me, who has been critical of Saddiq and wasn't as high on Saddiq as you guys, it's like for me to see Saddiq play like this, because I believe he is better than this. I even as me not being as high on him as you guys, I don't believe he's as bad as this. It's hard to see him play like this, because I think he's better than that. But at a certain point, you can't think that he has to show it. And 26 games is a hell of a sample size. I feel like that's a decent enough sample size to start questioning things and to start thinking about things. Dwayne Casey said he was going to start looking at things after 20 games. We're at 26 games of Saddiq Bey seriously struggling, and it's time to be worried a little bit, I think. But yeah, those are my 3 takeaways. I want to apologize for it being negative the last 2. But again, with a team that's 4-22, you're not going to find many positives. I know everyone wants, people. I've had some of you guys, it's not the majority of you guys, but I've had some of you guys say, you're being a little bit too negative. You're being, you need to find some positivity in this. And trust me, I'm trying to find some positivity. But if we're being objective, and that's my job, is to be objective and analyze what's going on out there, with a 4-22 team that's not showing any progression from your first to second year guys, and only one of their rookies from this season looks to be good, and that's Cade Cunningham. I mean, it's hard to find anything to be positive about. There's people even questioning Dwayne Casey too now. So it seems like at every part, it's just being objective and analyzing everything. There's not many things to be positive about. So, I mean, it is what it is. I apologize for not being as happy and positive as I was last season, but the Pistons have to give us something to be happy about and something to be positive about, and they haven't done that. So, I mean, it is what it is. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Thank you guys for making it your first listen of every single day. We're feeling available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, make sure you guys go ahead to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And I want to say that's just a minority of you guys that are saying that. I've had so much love from you guys since I took over this podcast, but especially recently over the last month or so. Man, just on the YouTube comments, the tweets you guys have been giving me, some of the DMs you guys have been giving me, man. I every now and then I go on one of these spiels at the end of the podcast, but I'll go on this one again. I really appreciate all the love you guys showing me since I've taken over this Locked On Pistons podcast, man. I've been grinding for years to become something and be someone people look up to and go to for information. And man, seeing all the love that you guys have shown me, all the comments, all the tweets, all the DMs that you guys send my way, I really appreciate it. I'm happy that I've gotten better and developed so much at this that you guys trust me with your knowledge and where you guys get your information. So again, I want to thank you guys so much for all the love you guys show me. For real, I really appreciate it. It makes for real. I don't know how to put it into words. It's whatever. I don't. I just thank you guys. For real, I really do appreciate it. But I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen. Make sure you guys go make Locked On Bets your second listen of every single day. Your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. Is free and available on all platforms. Thank you guys again for listening to today's episode. We'll be back tomorrow. I hope to have a guest. Hopefully, I'm going to try to get Bryce on the podcast to talk about some of the things we've seen recently. But yeah, Pistons don't play tonight. The game got canceled against the Chicago Bulls. They'll be back on Thursday against the Indiana Pacers. And until the next podcast, I'll see you guys later. Peace out, everybody, and go Pistons.